Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're going to be looking at something I think really interesting. It's relevant to a lot of people, especially in our modern age.
Yeah, definitely.
And that is affordable internet access. So we're going to be looking at TELUS's Connecting for Good programs,
Okay.
specifically the Mobility for Good and Internet for Good programs,
Yeah.
and how these are designed to help low-income families in Canada bridge that digital gap, as it were.
Yeah, it's increasingly becoming an issue, right? Like being connected is
Oh, absolutely.
almost a necessity now, and so
Yeah.
it's really great to see programs like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get into all the details of the programs, but yeah, it's not just about the affordability of the plans, but there are other things that they offer that help reduce some of those barriers that people face.
For sure.
So let's jump into Mobility for Good first.
Okay.
This one is aimed at families who are receiving the Maximum Canada Child Benefit,
Mm-hmm.
the CCB. And it's to get affordable wireless service. And, one thing that caught my eye right off the bat is they offer a free certified pre-owned Samsung Galaxy S21 with a 2-year term.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. So that right there is, for a lot of families, a huge help because a lot of times that device cost is a big barrier to entry. So
Yeah, absolutely.
providing that free phone is,
That's great.
it's a big help.
Yeah.
So they have 2 plan options under Mobility for Good.
Okay.
The first one is the Mobility for Good 3GB 5G Plus plan.
Yeah.
Now, this one is $25 a month, and it gives you 3 gigabytes of shareable data
Mm-hmm.
and unlimited talk and text.
Okay.
Then they've got the Mobility for Good 10GB 5G Plus plan.
Yeah.
This one bumps you up to 10 gigabytes of shareable data, so a bit more data, obviously.
Right.
And this one is $35 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And it also has unlimited talk and text.
Okay.
Now, one thing that is, we'll be talking about this more with the internet plans too, but the shareable data aspect I think is really interesting because, it gives that flexibility to families and how they use it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And every family's needs are different.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, I like that. And they have some pretty sweet perks that come along with these.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
So both plans will come with a free SIM card,
Okay.
no contracts or cancellation fees.
Yeah.
And this is a big one, I think, access to digital literacy resources
Oh,
through TELUS.
okay.
And I think that last one is especially important because it's not just about providing that access, it's about equipping people
Yeah.
with the skills and knowledge to actually use the internet
Right.
safely and effectively.
For sure. Like, it's one thing to have the internet, but then knowing how to use it is a whole other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's such a key part of actually bridging the digital divide because if you don't have the skills to use it, then it's almost...
Yeah, it's almost pointless.
Yeah.
You need both.
So to be eligible for Mobility for Good, you need to be receiving that maximum CCD amount that we talked about. And you need to be able to provide a recent statement that shows that your family net income is $36,502 or less.
Okay, so that's how they sort of verify that it's going to the right.
Exactly. And that's how they're making sure that these resources are directed to people who need them most.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that's in the fine print is existing TELUS customers can actually migrate their contract to a Mobility for Good plan.
Oh,
But they do have to clear any outstanding balances.
that makes sense.
Yeah. So if you've got an existing contract, you can move it over.
Yeah.
But you got to clear those balances first.
Yeah, that's fair.
So that's Mobility for Good in a nutshell.
Okay, cool.
Are you ready to move on to Internet for Good?
Yeah, let's hear about that.
Okay. So Internet for Good aims to make home internet more affordable, and this is for low-income families with children in British Columbia, Alberta, and parts of Quebec. Now, one really cool thing is they offer the option to actually purchase a low-cost refurbished computer
Oh, wow.
through partner organizations.
That's really great.
Yeah, so, again, that can be another barrier that some families face.
Oh, for sure. Especially the cost of computers these days is really high.
Yeah, so that's a really thoughtful addition there.
Yeah.
And they have 3 plan options for Internet for Good.
Okay.
And each one kind of caters to a different need and budget, which I think is nice.
Yeah.
So the first one is Internet 25.
Oh.
And this one's $10 a month for 24 months.
Oh.
So it offers download and upload speeds of 25 mDPs, which is good for, your basic browsing, email, video, calls, things like that.
Right.
And it comes with 300 gigabytes of data.
Okay, great for like a family that maybe isn't using it a ton but still needs
Exactly, for like essential tasks.
Yeah, exactly.
Then we've got Internet 50. This one is $20 a month, also for 24 months. And this bumps you up to 50 Mbps download and upload speeds.
Okay.
So you can handle multiple devices, streaming, things like that. And this one comes with unlimited data,
Oh, nice.
which is a big plus,
Yeah, especially for a family.
especially with multiple users.
Yeah.
And then finally, for those who need even more speed,
Okay.
they've got Internet 150.
You're right.
This one is $35 a month for 24 months.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives you 150 Mbps download and upload speeds. And it also has unlimited data.
Wow.
So that one's for your real heavy internet users.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
That price.
Yeah, so that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Now, much like Mobility for Good, Internet for Good comes with no contracts or cancellation fees.
Yeah.
And you also get that access to the TELUS Wise resources.
Okay.
But there is some fine print that we should mention.
Okay. What's that?
The account has to be under the name that's on that CCB statement.
Okay.
And it's for wired internet only.
Okay.
So no wireless or smart hub users.
All right. So just important to be aware of those.
Exactly. Just making sure everything's transparent.
Yeah.
And one other interesting thing is customers can actually reapply after the initial 24 months if they're still eligible.
Oh, okay.
So you're not, completely cut off
Right.
after that 2-year period. If you need to, you can reapply.
Yeah. I like that.
So we've covered sort of the basic outline of both of those programs.
Yeah.
Are you ready to hear a little bit about the application process?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so they've designed this to be very user-friendly.
Okay.
You can actually apply online through the TELUS website,
Oh, nice.
or you can apply by mail.
Okay.
You'll need to gather all your documents, submit them, and then they'll do a review, which typically takes about a week.
Okay.
And then if you're approved, they'll send you a code and instructions on how to activate your plan.
Great. So it sounds like a pretty streamlined process.
Yeah, fairly straightforward.
Nice.
And we'll be sure to link all the necessary information and documents in the description below,
Perfect.
so you guys can have easy access to that.
Yeah.
So now that we've kind of gone through all of that,
Mm-hmm.
what are your initial thoughts about these programs?
I think it's great. I'm really impressed with the holistic approach. They're not just offering a discounted plan. They're also thinking about, like you said, providing the device, the digital literacy resources, and even making the application process really simple.
Yeah.
So I think they're really taking all the steps they can.
Yeah, and that really stood out to me too, is it's not just about offering that cheap internet plan. It's about creating a system that helps people actually benefit from it.
Exactly.
Now, these programs are fantastic,
Yeah.
but there are some bigger questions that it brings up, like,
Right.
what happens to the families that might not qualify after that initial 24 months?
Right.
And how do we ensure that everyone has access to the internet regardless of their income?
Yeah, for sure. Because technology is always changing.
Exactly.
The needs are always changing.
And it's constantly evolving. So, these are big questions that need to be looked at.
Yeah, definitely. And it will be interesting to see how things progress over time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think this is a perfect place to actually pause for today. And we'll come back and we'll discuss these bigger questions in more detail in part 2 of this deep dive.
That's great.
So stay tuned for that.
Welcome back, everyone.
All right, so we're back, and we were just talking about the specifics of those 2 programs, but now I want to kind of zoom out a bit
Yeah.
and talk about, those bigger picture implications of digital equity and all of that.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's one thing to understand how the programs work, but it's a whole other thing to look at the impact that they can actually have.
Right, exactly. And for families that are struggling financially, having access to affordable internet and mobile service can really be life-changing.
Oh, absolutely. And think about it these days. We rely on the internet for almost everything.
Oh, yeah.
Job applications, staying connected with family, getting information.
Their education.
Yeah, all of that.
It's all online.
Yeah, and without that reliable internet access, people are going to get left behind. They miss out on so many opportunities.
Right. And it's not just about, the economic stuff either, right?
Right.
It's social inclusion. It's,
Yeah.
Being able to participate in your community.
Absolutely.
All of that is so tied to the internet now.
Yeah. It's almost like a basic human right at this point.
Yeah, and that's what makes these programs so important. They're really addressing, a huge need in our society.
Yeah, and TELUS is really stepping up to address the digital divide in Canada.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how do you see these programs kind of fitting into this bigger picture?
Well, I think, like I said, they're removing those barriers
Mm-hmm.
that prevent families from getting online, and that's going to have huge ripple effects.
Yeah. Can you give us some concrete examples?
Sure. So for kids, I mean, having internet means they can keep up with their schoolwork,
Hmm.
they can do research, access online learning resources, and even start to learn those digital skills that they're going to need later in life.
Yeah.
And for parents, I mean, they can look for jobs more easily,
Hmm.
connect with support networks and all sorts of things.
Yeah, and even just like staying in touch with loved ones, especially for families that, may have moved to Canada.
Yeah, absolutely.
That can be really important.
So yeah, there are just so many ways that having internet access can really open up opportunities.
It sounds like it.
But, like we were talking about earlier, there are still some questions that we need to address.
Yeah, and one of the big ones is what happens after that 24 months?
Exactly.
What about those families who maybe won't qualify anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Or what about those families who maybe don't even qualify to begin with?
Right, because the program is great, but it's not a perfect solution.
Right. It's a start,
Yeah.
but we need more long-term solutions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How do we make sure that digital equity isn't just a temporary thing?
Right. And so what might those solutions actually look like? I mean, what are some steps that we could take?
Well, one thing we could do is expand the eligibility criteria.
Okay.
So it includes more people. And we could also look at partnerships between companies, community organizations, and the government to provide even more support.
Yeah, that's a good idea because it really does take a multifaceted approach
Mm-hmm.
to actually address this issue.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about the affordability.
No,
We need to think about those digital literacy skills as well.
exactly. And that's where I think a program like TELUS Wise is really valuable.
Oh, yeah. Could you tell us a bit more about what they actually offer?
Yeah, so they have free workshops, educational materials, and online resources,
Wow.
all focused on digital literacy and online safety.
Okay.
So they cover all sorts of things like basic internet skills,
Mhm.
protecting yourself from cyberbullying.
Oh, that's so important.
It is, yeah, even things like scams and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
So it's all about making sure that people know how to stay safe online.
Right, because it's not enough to just provide the tools.
Exactly.
You need to know how to actually use them.
Yeah, and TELUS-wise, I think they do a great job of empowering users
Mhm.
so they can make informed decisions.
Yeah, and I think that's something that TELUS has really done well here is they've gone above and beyond
Mm-hmm.
to really address all of these different aspects of digital inclusion.
Yeah, I think they're really setting a good example.
Yeah. So do you think these programs could serve as a model for other places?
I definitely think so. I mean, they've done a fantastic job.
Yeah.
But like with anything, there's always room for improvement.
Right. And what might that look like?
Well, one area where we could improve is addressing the geographical differences in internet access.
Okay.
So these programs are great, but there are still lots of rural and remote communities.
Oh, yeah, that don't have reliable internet.
Exactly, and that's a huge barrier.
Right. So it's not just about income.
No.
It's about location,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. And we need to figure out how to make sure that everyone has access regardless of where they live.
And even if you can solve that issue, the technology is always changing.
Yeah.
So how do we make sure that these programs and our skills and everything can keep up?
Right. How do we prevent a digital skills gap?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's going to take a lot of work
Yeah.
from everyone involved.
And we can't just, fix it and then forget about it.
No, it's an ongoing thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really highlights the importance of that long-term systemic change that we were talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, this has been such an interesting conversation.
It has.
What stands out to you the most about all of this?
I think for me, what's most impressive is that they're looking at it holistically.
Yeah.
They're not just throwing money at the problem.
Right.
They're really trying to create an inclusive ecosystem.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you can really tell that they've thought this through.
Yeah.
So what would you say is the key takeaway for our listeners?
I think the most important thing is that digital equity is an issue that affects all of us. And
Yeah.
we all need to be advocating for solutions.
Yeah. And if you are eligible for these programs, definitely check them out.
Yeah, the links are in the description. And even if you aren't eligible, there are still things you can do. You can support organizations. You can volunteer your time to teach digital skills.
Yeah. Spread awareness about the issue.
Exactly.
All of that helps.
Yeah. Any action, big or small, can make a difference.
All right. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay.
If we truly believe that digital equity is a fundamental right, how can we work towards a future where everyone has that opportunity to thrive in the digital age?
That's a great question, and I think it's one that we all need to be thinking about.
Absolutely. All right. That's it for part 2. We'll be right back to wrap things up and share some final thoughts and resources. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into TELUS's Connecting for Good programs. It's been a really thought-provoking conversation so far.
Yeah, definitely a lot to consider.
So let's just take a moment to recap everything we've talked about today. We started by looking at both Mobility for Good and Internet for Good. These programs are designed to make internet and mobile service more accessible
Yeah.
to low-income families here in Canada.
Mhm.
And we really went through all those details.
Yeah.
The eligibility requirements, the different plan options,
That fine print.
all the fine print, all the important stuff.
Yeah, we talked about, the bigger picture too.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't just stay at that surface level. We
Mhm.
really wanted to think about, what are the implications of these programs?
Mm-hmm.
How are they actually impacting, the digital divide and digital inclusion?
Yeah, and how important digital literacy is.
Absolutely. And, TELUS-wise,
Yeah,
what a great program that is to help people.
really empowering.
Yeah, develop those skills and that knowledge.
Mhm.
But, we also talked about the fact that this is an ongoing challenge.
Yeah, for sure. It's not something that's going to be solved overnight.
No, and it's constantly evolving.
Absolutely.
So, we need to keep working towards solutions.
And it's going to take all of us working together.
Exactly. And these programs are a really great example
Mhm.
of how, corporations, communities, individuals
Yeah,
can all work together to make a difference.
absolutely.
So to our listeners, if you think you might be eligible for these programs,
Yeah, definitely check them out.
please do check out the links in the episode description.
They could really make a difference.
Yeah, it could really open up a lot of possibilities for you and your family.
And even if you're not eligible, there are other ways to get involved.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like we were saying, you can support those organizations that are working on this issue.
Volunteer your time.
Yeah, teach digital literacy skills.
Spread awareness,
Mm-hmm.
every little bit
Yeah.
helps.
It all adds up.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I
Okay.
want to leave you with one final question to think about.
Okay.
We've been talking about how digital equity is so important. And if we truly believe that it is fundamental to a just and prosperous society,
Mm-hmm.
what can we do both individually and collectively to make sure that everyone has that opportunity to thrive in the digital age?
Yeah, that's a powerful question.
Yeah, and there's no easy answer.
No, but it's something that we all need to keep thinking about and keep working towards.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic conversation.
A lot of great insights.
And to all of our listeners out there, if you want to stay up to date on these important topics, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Timely Trends and News. We'll be back with more deep dives soon. Until then, stay curious and keep learning.